Let's get started again. You have been reviewing antitrust laws under the section of practice of real estate. So let me just set the stage for you. Under the section of practice of real estate on the exam, you will have 11 test questions. And of those 11 test questions, I think 4 or 5 of them could come from these antitrust laws. Another 5 or 6 could come from fair housing, which we're going to cover in a few sections coming up here momentarily. And then you might have some miscellaneous questions, whatever isn't filled with antitrust laws and fair housing, just around advertising, kind of in some general terms. So antitrust laws, do look for this to be some opportunities for you under that section. Antitrust laws are laws that prohibit certain activities in business where it would create a monopoly or anything that would an open and competitive market. Things that would maybe overly cause maybe even inflation, right? There are 5 types of antitrust laws that affect us in real estate: price fixing, group boycott, allocation of customers, allocation of markets, and tying agreements, or in Iowa, we call them tying agreements. And you very well will have a tying agreement question on the state content as well. So what are all of these things? Well, first of all, price fixing is an agreement between participants on the same side of the market to fix a certain price. It would be if Hy-Vee and Fairway got together and said, we are going to charge $1.50 for every gallon of whole milk. No negotiation. And really the truth is everything is negotiable, but you just typically don't do that at the checkout at the grocery because they would think you were crazy and put all your stuff back for you, right? But it says that you've got the right to shop for the best price for milk. And if you think you can get a better deal somewhere else at another grocer, that's your right to do and go buy it somewhere else. And what makes things of good value to you and what makes them a good value to me could be totally subjective, right? So we have the right to shop for the best value. And when we've got competitors that fix the price, it doesn't allow us to do that. And it gives them control on their supply and demand. We saw this happen with 2 big, large auction houses with Christie's and Sotheby's in New York that settled for over a $500 million lawsuit around a price fixing scheme. These are the auction houses where you would take your fancy artwork, your Van Gogh, or your Picasso or something like that, or your Hope Diamond maybe. And they agreed that they were going to charge the same amount for their services, which meant the consumer didn't have the option of going back and forth and shopping for what they perceive to be the best value. Where it happens in real estate is if two or more brokers got together and said, you know what, let's focus on market share. Let's increase the supply of homes we have listed with our brokerages. And let's all agree to list all properties for 4%, for example, for the next year. Okay. That would be illegal because we've got multiple businesses conspiring. So I think I've seen maybe some practice exam questions out there that say, if you're with multiple brokers and they start talking about commission rates, what should you do? I think probably the best answer is say, this is an antitrust violation and get up and get the hell out of there, right? But that's the concept around price fixing. Group boycott is more around competition. And this is when 2 or more businesses conspire to withdraw business from a competitor, probably for the purpose of running them out of business. Microsoft had a big group boycott hearing that they went through in the 90s. And I don't know if they were guilty or innocent. My understanding of the case was Microsoft went to a company that sold anti-theft or antivirus software and made them an offer to buy their company for a set amount, plus they would pay that company, let's say, for example, $1 for every computer that they put that software on for virus protection. And the folks that sold the company thought, yippee, we're going to make millions selling it today. And then we'll have all this residual money coming in year after year because Microsoft sells so many computers. Well, I think what Microsoft ended up doing is buying the business. They're now shut down. And then they never put their product on any of the computers. Instead, they built their own antivirusware and put that on the Microsoft computers, right? So they basically bought someone out in order to eliminate their competition. That's what they were accused of. And recently, right before I know COVID happened, we were seeing companies testify in front of Congress to determine maybe whether they were breaking antitrust violations around price fixing and group boycott specifically. Facebook, Google, and Amazon were all under scrutiny for this. And that's a good question. If Amazon closed today, would it wreck our economy? I don't know. That's a good question. A couple of other types of antitrust laws is allocation of customers and markets. This basically says you can set up a business wherever you want and you can work with whatever clients you want. Okay. There shouldn't be any sort of scheme out there that divides things into territories, which means if there's already 50 chiropractors in Urbandale, Iowa, and you want to be a chiropractor in Urbandale, you have the right to open a business and service whatever customers you want. Okay. Tie-in agreements or tying agreements, as we call them in Iowa, are antitrust law violations, and they are specifically called out in the Iowa Code as being illegal. And what this does is it forces someone to do one piece of business that they don't really want to do in order to actually get the product they do want. Here's how it happens in real estate. Let's say you come to me and say, Amy, I want to buy this lot that you have listed for sale and build a new house on it. And I say, no, I will only sell you this lot if when you build that new home on it, you also list that house with me. Okay. We're tying two contracts together. That's illegal. Now, can you use me to represent you to buy the lot and then turn around and hire me and list me to use me to list the new construction home? Yes, you can hire me to do both. The point is I cannot tie them together as a condition, right? Now, I don't mean to give anything away, but I always think about those BOGO deals, right? With Payless shoes or Famous Footwear, something like that, where it's buy one, get one half off. Did you know that you can only go in and just buy one pair of shoes and pay full price, right? It would be a violation if they required you to buy that second pair, okay? Now, if your spouse is within earshot, I'm not meaning to tattle on you. Of course, I know we love to buy that second pair half off. But the point is you don't have to buy it. If that was a requirement that you had to buy two, that would make that a tie-in agreement. This just says if you buy one pair, you pay full price. But if you decide to get that second pair, we're going to sweeten the deal and give it to you half off. Now, for those of you that might be history buffs, there was a great show a few years ago on the History Channel called The Men Who Built America. This was all about the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, JP Morgan, and it ended with Henry Ford. But this was really an illustration specifically about what Rockefeller did, who is big into oil. And before the car came along, Rockefeller was still big into oil because at that point, they were refining it to a very pure form because that's what lit our homes, right? We use that for lighting before electricity. What he would do is he would go into communities and buy the oil refinery. People would think, yippee skippy, moneybags, Mr. Rockefeller's bought our business, but then he would close it down and start shipping his own refined oil in, right? So he was, instead of just building a bigger business, he was closing other businesses down in order to make his grow. And another thing that he was doing in combination with Vanderbilt's were huge into shipping. They originally, I believe, started in the boat shipping and moved on to railway. Well, Rockefeller and Vanderbilt had an agreement that Rockefeller would use the railway system of Vanderbilt's to ship their refined oil. And when they got into a dispute and Rockefeller withdrew his patronage from Vanderbilt, it collapsed the industry of the railways and almost caused the first Great Depression before, of course, the infamous one that we had. This one almost caused it in the late 1800s. Then let's move on to folks like J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan was after a huge race with the light bulb, right? Thomas Edison had one, Tesla had one, and he started investing in Edison's invention business. And he invested in it to a point where he was able to actually kick Edison out of his own company, make it his own, and that's what eventually went on to become General Electric. So as all these crazy schemes are happening, and these gentlemen were building great amounts of wealth at the time, which that's okay.